the world once knew the true weight of courage. The sound of gold falling onto a table signified power, wealth, and promise. Each coin was a physical declaration of effort, a tangible trace of human exchange. But over time, the metal became uncomfortable, heavy, and restrictive. Gold ceased to circulate, and paper took its place, heralding the birth of a new era, the era of invisible money. An era in which value ceased to weigh, ceased to shine, and began to float in abstraction. There began the most perfect illusion of the modern world: wealth without substance. At some point, banknotes replaced faith in gold with faith in institutions. Central banks became temples of collective trust, and citizens unwittingly became believers. Paper no longer had value for what it was, but for what it represented. Thus was born a silent religion, without hymns or visible temples, but more powerful than any previous faith: faith in money. Each transaction became a modern prayer, repeated millions of times a day. And each number, printed or digital, became a dogma shared by all humanity. Value stopped being measured in weight and began to be measured in trust. With the arrival of credit, money began to promise things that didn't yet exist. Debt has become the new raw material of wealth. Banks began creating money out of thin air, backed not by gold, but by hope. A hope that the future will pay for what the present has already consumed. Thus, humanity learned to live ahead of its own reality. Money, once the result of labor, became a promise of unfulfilled effort. A promise written on screens, sustained by the trust of millions who never question it. Today, money no longer shines. It is no longer printed or minted. It just appears. Digits shifting between accounts, like ghosts moving through invisible circuits. Every click, every transfer, every mobile payment is a digital invocation of that universal phantasm of value. Money exists, but it can't be touched. It travels through cables, floats in clouds, rests on servers that few understand and no one fully controls. The world's wealth now fits into a code. But in that lightness lies a trap. When money lost its body, it also lost its boundary. There is no longer a boundary between what exists and what is promised. Credit, trading, digital investments, and virtual currencies exist in that intermediate space where reality and illusion merge. And the further we get from gold, the closer we get to blind faith. A faith that sustains the system, even though no one knows what truly sustains the value. Humanity has created an invisible, all-encompassing web. A continuous flow of data, figures, and debts moving faster than reason. Money became information, and information became power. But that power, like everything intangible, can vanish in a second. It only takes a power outage, a server failure, or a corrupted line of code. And the world, which believes itself to be sustained by numbers, would discover emptiness beneath its feet. Invisible money didn't just change the economy. It changed the way we perceive time, effort, and desire. We're constantly chasing numbers that move too fast to catch up. Our work translates into numbers that disappear instantly, like water through your fingers. We no longer work with things, but with numbers. And as those digits grow or fall on a screen, the human soul becomes a spectator of its own illusion. The big question isn't how much money we have, but what it means to have it. If everything can be erased, if the value depends on an electrical system or a remote server, where does true wealth lie? Perhaps in memory, in real work, in what no screen can reflect. Because if money is just a shared idea, its power depends on us all continuing to believe. And when faith is broken, illusion will disappear with it. Thus begins this journey, an exploration of the ghost of money. A journey through the history of how value became code. And how, without realizing it, we all end up living inside a digital mirage. Money no longer has a face, no weight, no smell. But it continues to rule every decision, every desire, every fear. This is the world of ghost money, a world where power cannot be touched, but can be felt. Chapter 1. From physical gold to paper, the beginning of the illusion. Thus begins this journey, an exploration of the ghost of money. A journey through the history of how value became code. And how, without realizing it, we all end up living inside a digital mirage. Money no longer has a face, no weight, no smell. But it continues to rule every decision, every desire, every fear. This is the world of ghost money, a world where power cannot be touched, but can be felt. It all started with gold, the shining metal that civilizations worshipped for centuries as a symbol of wealth, purity, and power. Gold was tangible. You could weigh it, hold it, feel its coldness in your hand. It was the anchor of human courage, the physical reflection of confidence. But empires grew, kingdoms expanded, and trade crossed oceans. Carrying chests full of metal became slow, dangerous, inefficient. And so an idea was born. Leave the gold in the temples of money, the banks, and move only with a piece of paper that said, "This is worth this much gold." A promise, a symbol, a beginning of the end. That paper represented an invisible revolution. There was no longer a need for metal, only trust in the person issuing the note. Gold still existed, yes, but hidden, inaccessible, locked behind vaults sealed with secrets. The banknotes multiplied, and people learned to believe that paper was worth as much as gold. That was the first spiritual conversion of money, from weight to faith, from metal to word. Money began to become a religion. Central banks became the new temples. Their priests, the economists, decided how much paper should circulate, how much gold should be stored, how much trust could endure the illusion. And humanity, without realizing it, handed over its freedom to an institution that manufactured printed promises. Each bill said, "Trust, this is worth something." And people believed, because they needed to believe. Thus was born the first ghost, disembodied value. Paper, fragile and easy to destroy, replaced eternal gold. Governments could print more when the treasury was emptied. Banks could create credit on future promises. Money was no longer a reflection of work or real wealth, but of collective faith. An illusion sustained by the need to keep everything functioning. The economy became a theater, and paper, its most convincing script. On the world stage, no one wanted to be the first to admit that gold was no longer there. Each bill was printed with a face, a number, a symbol. But behind the ink, there was no gold, only debt. Debt turned into wealth. Promises turned into apparent reality. Thus was born the modern system, a circle where money is created when it is lent and destroyed when it is repaid. Gold was no longer necessary. Only belief. The ghost of money began to take shape, moving silently between numbers and signatures. The bills crossed borders, fueled wars, toppled empires. Money became a universal language, but also a tool of control. because whoever controls the printing press controls the world. Gold was finite, paper was not. And with abundance came dominance. Value ceased to be what you had and became what you owed. And so, little by little, humanity traded metal for a perfectly crafted illusion. Even today, if you pick up a banknote and stare at it, you'll see that it contains no value. It contains promise, power, obedience. It is the witness to a silent pact between collective faith and institutional greed. The gold sleeps, forgotten, under tons of concrete. Meanwhile, the paper travels, is folded, burned, printed. Gold had limits. Paper did not. And in that difference, the ghost that would soon live on the screens was born. Thus begins this journey, an exploration of the ghost of money. A journey through the history of how value became code. And how, without realizing it, we all end up living inside a digital mirage. Money no longer has a face, no weight, no smell. But it continues to rule every decision, every desire, every fear. This is the world of ghost money, a world where power cannot be touched, but can be felt. It all started with gold. That metal that ancient civilizations extracted from the earth and stored as if it were the very essence of the sun. It was shining, it didn't rust, it was weird. That is why it became a symbol of eternity, in proportion to the value of life and human effort. Gold wasn't just wealth, it was condensed confidence. It was the language that everyone understood without speaking. Her weight represented something real, something that could not be invented. But gold had a limit, and limits have never been liked by power. As kingdoms began to expand, as trade crossed deserts and oceans, gold became an obstacle. It was too heavy to move, too valuable to lose. And then the most dangerous idea in history was born. Let's not carry the gold. Let's just carry a symbol to represent it. Thus were born the first certificates, the first papers signed by merchants or banks saying, "This is equivalent to this much gold." The gold sat there, motionless, and the paper began to move. That was the first great transfer of power. Paper became more practical. Easier to produce, faster to distribute, harder to trace. And gold, although it continued to exist, was disappearing from people's daily lives. Within a few generations, people forgot what its real backing looked like. They only knew that that bill, with a number and a signature, had value. And so, humanity inadvertently made a leap, from metal to symbol, from body to spirit, from gold to myth. That myth was called trust. A word so light, yet so powerful, that it ended up sustaining the entire world economy. Gold was no longer needed, but faith. Faith in banks, in governments, in the system that printed promises and circulated them. Each bill was a silent prayer. I think this is worth something. And as long as everyone believed the same thing, the illusion would remain alive. Money stopped being an object. It became a collective agreement, a shared spell. Central banks rose up as the new temples of the modern world. There were no longer golden priests, but economists in suits and ties. They controlled the amount of paper, the speed with which money moved, and the faith people had to have. Power was no longer held in coffers, but in silent offices where it was decided how much illusion would be printed each year. And so, the empires of the past, which ruled with swords, were replaced by empires of credit. The world changed from metal to promise, and no one noticed. Every banknote that was born bore the mark of debt. Because modern money is not created out of thin air, it is created by lending. Each loan is a new unit of faith issued to the world, a new piece of the mortgaged future. The system is fueled by promises, by the hope that tomorrow someone will be able to pay for what is invented today. Thus, money became an infinite circle. It is created with debt and dies with payments. An invisible but perpetual cycle that keeps the collective illusion alive. Paper brought more than convenience. It brought obedience. Because whoever prints money defines the value of everything else. They define the value of your work, how much a loaf of bread costs, or how much effort is equivalent to a roof over your head. The power to print became the power to dominate. And so, while people celebrated the progress of commerce, someone else wrote the rules of the game. Invisible rules. Rules that only those who print understand. Humanity, hypnotized by the convenience of paper, began to confuse value with price. It believed that what could be bought was what it was worth, and it forgot that real value never depended on ink or numbers, but on life, time, and the human labor behind it. Thus, slowly, gold was erased from the collective memory. Children grew up believing that money was always paper, and adults learned to trust in what they could not see. Faith became custom, illusion, tradition. But deep down, something changed in the human essence. Gold, being limited, reminded us that abundance had a price. Paper, because it could be printed endlessly, taught us that scarcity could be manipulated. It no longer mattered how much gold existed, but rather how much trust could be generated. Money became a shared fiction, a story everyone repeated to keep the system from collapsing. And the more faith we had, the bigger the ghost became. The ghost of value. Thus was born ghost money. First there was paper, then credit, then light. Each step took us a little further from the metal and a little further from reality. Gold slept underground, forgotten, and humanity, fascinated by convenience, worshipped banknotes that could be burned, forged, multiplied. But no one asked, what would happen if one day paper disappeared? Where would courage be? Where would faith be? Gold at least could be found. Paper could be touched. But what came next could not. Money would become even more ethereal, lighter, more phantom. And so, while the world thought it was moving forward, it was actually sinking deeper into illusion. Because the next step for money wouldn't be paper. It would be the screen. Chapter 2. The card, the plastic that promised freedom. Everything changed when paper became too slow. Commerce no longer wanted to wait, banks no longer wanted to stop, and humans discovered something even more addictive than gold or paper money: credit. It was no longer about having money, but about having access to it. About opening an invisible door and telling the world, I can pay, even if I have nothing. Thus, the card was born. A shiny, light, weightless piece of plastic without history, but with the power to transform a promise into instant reality. It was the next step of ghost money. Money that didn't exist yet, but was already spent. An elegant illusion, disguised as freedom. The first modern credit card was born in 1950 in New York. A man forgot his wallet in a restaurant and vowed never to embarrass himself again. From that inconvenience, Diners Club was born, and with it, a new way of life. There was no longer a need to carry cash, just a card with a name and a signature. A small object but loaded with meaning, trust, status, promise. In the following decades, Visa, MasterCard, and American Express turned that invention into a revolution. Money became a line of credit, and debt a lifestyle. Plastic promised freedom. Buy now, pay later, the message read. And behind that simple phrase lay a complex machinery of psychology, advertising, and control. The consumer became a prisoner of desire. He no longer worked to acquire what he wanted. He worked to pay for what he had already acquired. Debt became a shadow that silently followed him, month after month. Compound interest became the new invisible executioner of the 20th century. Each purchase was a seed of debt, planted with a smile and watered with faith. Banks discovered something extraordinary. People spend more when they don't see their money disappearing. The act of paying, once physical and conscious, became a mechanical movement. Swipe, sign, smile. And with each gesture, human beings moved a little further away from the reality of value. Money stopped hurting. There were no more bills to count, no more coins to weigh, no more pockets to empty. Credit turned the act of spending into a game of reflexes. And as in any game, the important thing was no longer to win, but to keep playing. Capitalism found its perfect fuel: infinite desire. Advertising accompanied this change with surgical precision. Cards were no longer tools. They were symbols of status, belonging, and power. Credit was associated with maturity, consumption with happiness, and debt with progress. A silent campaign of social conditioning covered the world with a promise: you are what you can buy. Work stopped being a means of living and became a means of paying. Financial freedom, that old utopia, was replaced by the illusion of unlimited access. Plastic democratized luxury, but it also universalized debt. Everyone could feel rich until the monthly statement arrived. The card even changed the emotional relationship with time. Before, you worked and then you bought. Now you bought first and worked later. The future was mortgaged in installments. The present became more comfortable, but shorter. Tomorrow stopped being hope and became a bill. The banks knew that there was no greater power than the control of time. Because whoever makes you pay in the future owns your tomorrow. And whoever owns your tomorrow no longer needs chains. In the following decades, cards multiplied their presence. Nations adopted them as a symbol of progress, businesses as a sign of modernity, and governments as a tracking tool. Consumption ceased to be a choice and became a social obligation. If you don't consume, you don't exist. That became the silent mantra of the century. Collective debt grew like an invisible ocean that sustained the global financial system. An ocean where each card was a drop, and each drop a promise of obedience. Cards also opened the door to digital control. For the first time, banks could know exactly where, when, and how each person spent. Money became traceable, and with it, freedom. What was previously private, a purchase, a trip, a gift, became data, a record, an algorithm. The money was no longer yours. It no longer slept in your pocket, but on a server. And that server wasn't in your country, nor under your control. Trust began to depend on cables and electricity. Plastic had promised freedom. But like every promise of the financial system, it came at a price. Convenience was paid for with surveillance, abundance with anxiety, access with debt. The modern consumer became the most perfect prisoner, happy, indebted, and monitored. He no longer needed shackles, just a credit limit and monthly interest. Plastic was the new key to the invisible prison. A shiny, wallet-sized prison. The listener at this point might ask, where does real money end and imaginary debt begin? To what extent is freedom authentic if it is bought in installments? Plastic was not the end of the road, just the next step in the evolution of ghost money. After the card would come electronic figures, algorithms, markets that move without hands. Money would become even more intangible, faster, more invisible. The credits were just the dress rehearsal. The real excitement was about to begin. Chapter 3: Banks and E-Money, Creation from Scratch. Money is no longer printed, it is programmed. It is no longer forged in metal or stamped on paper. It is born on a screen, in the blue glow of a monitor where a simple line of code silently multiplies numbers. This is how modern money is created. With a click, with a promise, with a debt. The bank does not lend what it has. It lends what declares Chev. And on that declaration, on that invisible trust, the world's economy is built. Every loan is a seed of new money. Every debt is its shadow. And between the two, the system flourishes, until someone stops believing. For centuries, money was synonymous with something tangible. Gold, silver, grain, land. But banks discovered a different alchemy. They didn't need more gold, just trust. Thus was born the fractional reserve system. For every coin held, 10 were lent. The rest was an accounting illusion. Yet that illusion became real because people kept believing. Because no one borrowed all their money at once. What began as a banking trick became the basis of modern growth, the cornerstone of credit, and the seed of the next collapse. Numbers began to replace medals. Balance sheets replaced coffers. Central banks became the architects of economic reality, able to create or destroy wealth by tweaking a simple interest rate. Minds were no longer needed, only screens. With a flick of a keyboard, banks could expand the money supply, inject liquidity, or trigger inflation. Money was no longer something you earned. Now it was simply generated. Every deposit in a bank account is a shared fiction. There's no treasure chest full of bills behind that number, just a digital record that says, there's value here. But what is that value if no one can touch it? It's a promise between strangers, held by a network of servers, laws, and algorithms that decide who has and who owes. At its core, the global banking system is a theater where everyone acts as if money exists. And as long as the audience applauds, the show goes on. In the 1990s, with the digitalization of finance, banks took the definitive leap into the intangible. Transactions began to move at the speed of light. Numbers traveled through submarine cables and satellite networks, crossing continents in seconds. The global economy became an interconnected network of electrical signals. In that instant, money ceased to have physical weight and took on its final form, that of data. A flow of information so powerful that if it stops, the entire world freezes. Banks no longer need vaults, they need servers. Thieves no longer wear masks, they use malware. The risk is no longer the theft of a banknote, but the collapse of a system. A power failure, a cyber attack, a cloud outage, and millions of people could lose everything without a single cent having changed hands. Electronic money is ethereal, but its power is absolute, because even if you don't see it, it controls every move, every decision, every outstanding debt. In this era, credit is the lifeblood of the system. Without debt, there is no growth. Without lending, there is no consumption. And so, the expansion of electronic money also became an expansion of dependency. Banks lend you money to buy, charge you money to live, and record you to plan. Everything is measured, everything is tracked, everything is calculated. Control doesn't need shackles, just debt and a bright screen to see your balance. Electronic money gave us speed, convenience, and access. But it also locked us into a system where every transaction leaves a trace. Currencies dissolved into algorithms, and privacy was traded for efficiency. Today, every purchase is a confession, every payment a record of obedience. Bank accounts are mirrors of human behavior. They reveal desires, fears, and priorities. Electronic money doesn't just buy things, it buys information. And behind that digital flow, a small group of institutions decides how much money exists and who receives it. There is no voting, no consultation, only algorithms, balance sheets, and closed-door meetings. This is how the global economy moves, through invisible orders circulating through submarine cables and data centers that never sleep. In the silence of a server, the rules of the modern world are written. Money was born human. Today, it belongs to machines. But the most disturbing thing is not that money no longer physically exists. It's that its power continues to grow. Because digital control doesn't require violence, only connection. A day without access to the banking system is a day without existence. In the age of electronic money, it doesn't matter how much you have, but whether the system lets you use it. The bank doesn't hold your wealth, it holds your permission to participate, and that permission can be withdrawn with a click. Thus, at the height of technology, money became a ghost. It lives on servers, breathes in the cloud, and obeys invisible algorithms. We are the inhabitants of a spectral economy where value is not touched, it is executed. And even if no one sees it, the ghost is still there, pulsing behind every screen, reminding us that the intangible can also possess. Money is no longer metallic or physical. It is pure coded belief. And as long as that belief exists, the ghost will live on. Chapter 4: Digital Trading and the Derivatives Mirage. Money no longer walks, it runs. It doesn't pass from hand to hand, but from algorithm to algorithm, traveling at the speed of light. In this new temple of capital, human operators are mere shadows behind screens. The real action happens on servers that never sleep, executing orders in milliseconds. Millions of dollars are born and disappear between the blink of an eye. They call it trading digital, but it's actually a dance of ghosts. A market where almost nothing is real, but everything has consequences. Trading used to have a face. On the stock exchanges, traders shouted, shoved each other, and sweated over every order. Money still had something human about it. But over time, the chaos of voices was replaced by the silence of machines. The traders disappeared, and algorithms took their place, calculating in nanoseconds what a brain would need minutes to decide. Today, trades happen so fast that no mind could keep up. In an instant, one wrong click can wipe out fortunes or bring down markets. It's the new realm of weightless, tactless, and soulless money. Digital trading thrives on things that don't exist: projections, futures, derivatives. Instruments that don't represent tangible objects, but rather assumptions about value. A bet on another bet, a shadow reflecting another shadow. Thus, derivatives multiply money without creating wealth. Each contract, each operation, each simulation is one more layer on an empty foundation. It's the perfect mirage. The bigger the system seems, the further from reality it is. And yet, everyone keeps staring at the screens, believing that the truth lives there. Speculation is the invisible soul of the market. People no longer invest to build, but to anticipate. The greatest fortunes don't come from factories, but from fluctuations. Buying low, selling high, and doing it 1,000 times a second. Algorithms don't understand fear or ethics. They only know patterns, signals, and opportunity. Every trade is a breath of the system. But behind that accelerated breathing, there's a heart beating too fast. And one day, every heart that beats tirelessly collapses. Derivatives were created as hedging tools, a way to reduce risk. But over time, they became the most dangerous weapons of the financial system. Derivatives on mortgages, on debt, on oil futures, on nothing. Contracts representing trillions of dollars, with no physical backing. It's money betting on money, an endless game sustained by trust and greed. On the surface, the market is stable. But it only takes one spark, one tiny deviation, for the mirage to shatter. When that happens, the fall isn't digital, it's human. The 2008 crisis was the first big warning. Banks collapsing from betting against their own stability, funds evaporating in a matter of days, governments bailing out the very people who created the disaster. Derivatives, those elegant and complex formulas, proved to be bombs disguised as innovation. But the world didn't learn. The same algorithms, now faster, once again built castles in the sand. The digital market is a mirror that always promises a new opportunity. But behind the reflection, there is only emptiness. High-frequency trading does not stop. Every second, thousands of orders are executed and canceled before any human notices. It is a war of speed where the winner is not the wisest, but the fastest. Millions of fiber optic cables, hidden underground servers, and private satellites, all to gain microseconds of advantage. Digital money is a creature of time. It devours the present before it exists. There is no production, only reaction. There is no creation, only speculation. And while money circulates without touching the ground, risk accumulates like static electricity. No one can see it, but everyone feels it. Central banks intervene, regulators watch, but the system is faster than they are. It is an animal that moves by instinct and responds only to the impulse of profit. Every time a bubble bursts, human greed is blamed. But maybe the fault is not human, but algorithmic. Maybe we have created a system that no longer belongs to us. Derivatives and digital trading don't just distort the economy, they distort the perception of value. What is worth today may be worthless tomorrow, for no apparent reason. Everything depends on invisible signals that only machines understand. Money stopped reflecting work and started reflecting movement. The more it moves, the more it exists. And as long as it keeps moving, we all believe the system is alive. But what happens when the movement stops? The financial market has become an infinity mirror. Every reflection seems real, every number seems solid. But when you try to touch it, your hand passes through the void. Digital trading is the perfection of the mirage, a collective illusion sustained by cables, data, and faith. The economy of the future is no longer based on production, but on perception. And like any mirage, its beauty only lasts as long as you don't look too closely. Because when the reflection breaks, there is no gold, no paper, nothing to hold the value, only faith. And faith, as always, is the most fragile asset in the world. Chapter 5: Cryptocurrencies, the new faith in the intangible. It all started with a promise. An idea born in digital forums in the shadow of a global financial crisis. Bitcoin emerged as a symbol of rebellion, a response to the control of banks and governments. Its creator, a name shrouded in mystery, Satoshi Nakamoto. He wasn't looking for fame, power, or wealth, but something deeper: freedom. The possibility of money without masters. A system that didn't depend on trust in institutions, but on pure mathematics. At that moment, millions believed they had found their way out of the financial labyrinth. What they didn't know was that they were entering another labyrinth. Invisible, intangible, even more seductive. Blockchain was presented as a revolution. A centerless network, impossible to manipulate, where each transaction was recorded forever. An incorruptible memory of value. In a world where banks printed money out of thin air, this technology offered transparency and autonomy. It seemed like the return of monetary purity, but in a digital version. However, over time, the ideal fused with desire. The search for freedom became a race for profits. The first believers became speculators. The libertarian dream turned into a fever. Suddenly, the word crypto began to shine like the new gold. Inexperienced young people became millionaires in weeks. Each token was a promise, each upward graph a new dogma. The cryptocurrency market grew like an expanding universe, without rules, without borders, without authority. But the history of money, even when it changes form, repeats its lessons. Where there is greed, there are bubbles. Where there is illusion, there is a fall. In that weightless world, digital fortunes began to vanish as quickly as they appeared. Disembodied wealth showed its vulnerability. One click, one hack, one forgotten password was enough to lose everything. Cryptocurrencies represent the purest faith of the 21st century. They are not backed by gold, governments, or even debt. Their only support is the collective belief that they have value. A belief as fragile as it is powerful. Millions of people buy, sell, and exchange without ever touching the object of their desire. There are no bills, no coins, no vaults, only keys, chains, and screens. Money has reached its final form, pure information. A number floating in the cloud that can disappear if the server stops beating. Phantom money has found its maximum expression. In the early years, the discourse was clear: decentralization, freedom, anonymity. But as cryptocurrencies gained power, they attracted the attention of giants. Governments began to regulate, banks to participate, investment funds to speculate. What began as a rebellion became a new system of control. Centralized exchanges hold private keys, regulators demand identification, and large corporations dominate the flow. The dream of financial freedom was absorbed by the machinery of the same power it sought to replace. The cycle repeats. The ideal becomes an instrument. Decentralization ended up centralized in invisible hands. The rise of altcoins and DeFi, decentralized finance projects, was an experiment in collective faith. Millions of investors placed their trust in code written by strangers. And when the market crashed, they discovered a brutal truth. Code is no protection against human nature. Frauds, scams, rug pulls, and broken promises populated the digital landscape. The technological utopia showed its human face: greed, fear, and desperation. What was supposed to be a system of mathematical justice became a jungle of speculation. Those seeking to escape the traditional financial system ended up repeating its vices on another plane. But the blockchain, despite everything, remains one of the most profound inventions of our era. Its essence is incorruptible, a network of trust without hierarchies. In theory, it could return power to the people, take away banks' monopolies, and free economies from political control. However, power always finds a way to adapt. Today, states are experimenting with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Programmable, traceable, and controllable money. The promise of technological freedom could become the most sophisticated prison of all. The libertarian dream is one step away from becoming perfect surveillance. And yet, the spirit of ghost money still beats in cryptocurrencies. Because they represent the essence of human desire, to believe in something that cannot be touched. Faith in the code, in the idea, in the promise. Every token mined is an act of hope. Every transaction a declaration of independence. But also, every bubble that bursts is a lesson about the fragility of the intangible. Money, by detaching itself from its body, has become pure spirit. And like all spirits, it can uplift or possess. The crypto market lives in a state of perpetual oscillation. Euphoria and fear, impossible profits and devastating losses. New believers replace the old ones, convinced that this time it will be different. But the story doesn't change. Where there is hope, there is manipulation. The big players, the so-called whales, move prices with a simple gesture. In the ocean of digital money, the little ones swim between invisible currents. Some emerge with fortune, others disappear without a trace. The chapter of cryptocurrencies is not the end, but the next cycle. The logical evolution of a system that transforms matter into symbols and symbols into code. But behind the code, the same thing that drove gold, paper, and credit continues to beat: desire. As long as human beings need to believe in something to feel secure, there will be new forms of money. More abstract, faster, more fragile. Perhaps the next step will not be a currency, but an idea. A value without a body, without a number, only a digital presence. When that day comes, money will cease to be a means and will become the very soul of the system. And we, once again, will believe. Chapter 6: The Blackout. When the money disappears. The sound of digital silence is distinct. It doesn't resemble the natural silence of the forest or that of a windless night. It's a silence that weighs, that vibrates in the absence of connection, a void that interrupts the breathing of the modern world. Thus begins the blackout. An invisible spark, a glitch in a network that no one fully understands. And suddenly, everything stops. The screens that once displayed fortunes, debts, promises, go black. Money, which only existed in numbers, ceases to exist. There is no gold to search for, no bills to count. Only nothingness remains, a tangible nothingness that reeks of panic. Banks close their digital doors. ATMs display errors. Financial apps, which were once part of our daily pulse, are now dark mirrors. No one can transfer. No one can collect. No one can pay. Humanity awakens from its technological slumber to discover that its faith was based on light, electricity, and code. For decades, we built digital temples to worship disembodied money. Every click, every transaction was a modern prayer. But when the servers go down, when the cables fall silent, the altar disintegrates. The merchant who was rich yesterday can't sell a loaf of bread. The corporation that moved millions can't buy a liter of water. People begin to search for papers, coins, anything that makes sense, that has weight. Some find old bills in drawers, relics of a physical age that seemed over. Suddenly, what was considered obsolete becomes salvation. Money returns to what it was in the beginning, a story told between two people who still trust each other. The blackout doesn't just erase accounts. it erases hierarchies. The rich who accumulated digital zeros lose as much as the poor who never had access. Inequality dissolves for an instant, not through justice, but through collapse. The automated systems, the investment algorithms, the financial bots that dominated the markets, all are suspended, as if time had stopped running. The global economy, accustomed to beating to the rhythm of servers, enters cardiac arrest. Electronic money was the invisible oxygen of the system, and the power outage is the first sigh that doesn't come. Governments try to react, but without digital infrastructure, their speeches don't reach, their measures aren't implemented. Central banks issue statements that no one can read. The markets are closed, but fear remains open. On the streets, value begins to mutate. A liter of gasoline is worth more than a bank account. A candle, a generator, a sack of rice, the new currencies of a world that suddenly remembers that money only has power when the network breathes. The blackout becomes a mirror, reflecting the total dependence of a humanity that surrendered its autonomy to the cloud. Meanwhile, in remote places, where the connection was never strong, communities survive. The farmer who saves seeds, the family that trades with barter, the fisherman who exchanges his catch for bread, they barely feel the impact. They have no accounts that are deleted, no portfolios that are frozen. Their wealth remains tangible, alive, human. Paradoxically, the collapse of the digital returns value to the physical, to the real. The blackout reveals that innovation didn't make us freer, just more fragile. Days later, when the network tries to come back on, the data is no longer the same. Records, transfers, and contracts have been lost. No one knows exactly how much they had or how much they owe. The banks assure us that everything will return to normal, but a shadow lingers in the air. Doubt. Money, that phantom we believe to be eternal, has revealed its nature. Ethereal, unstable, dependent on an electric spark. People are beginning to wonder if it ever really existed, or if it was all a collective illusion sustained by screens and blind trust. The youngest, who grew up without touching cash, experienced the emptiness of not being able to pay with a gesture. The older ones, on the other hand, remember the bills, the smell of ink, the sensation of counting. In their hands, there is a memory that the digital world tried to erase. They teach others how to trade without systems, how to record exchanges on paper, how to use real value. For the first time in a long time, money passes from hand to hand again. And in that contact, there is something that technology forgot: humanity. Without servers, without blockchain, without banks, society rediscovers an ancient principle. Value only exists if someone believes in it. But now faith is not in banks, or brands, or governments. It is in the trust between people, in the word that is worth more than a code, in the exchange that is born from agreement, not from the algorithm. The blackout becomes, for some, purification, for others, condemnation. And while the world tries to rebuild itself, a question floats among the digital ruins. Who really controls the money when money no longer exists? Perhaps ghost money never disappeared. Perhaps it only changed shape, like all ghosts. And it will continue to haunt, unseen, as long as the human desire to possess, to accumulate, to believe exists. Because even in the deepest darkness, the ghost of money always finds a way to shine again. Final reflection, the echo of lost value. There comes a moment, at the end of every economic history, when the sound of money ceases to be metallic and becomes little more than an echo. An echo that travels through time, bouncing between screens, digital memories, and old vaults of banks that no longer exist. It is the echo of lost value, the whisper of something that once had weight, smell, texture. The man who once held gold coins now holds a phone. And on his screen, the numbers change, but the emptiness remains. Money ceased to be an object and became a reflection so compelling that no one remembers what it was like to live without it. Gold, that shining relic so dense, so unchanging, was more than a metal. It was a physical promise that something real held value. In ancient temples, ingots were kept the way secrets are kept, silently, in the dark, away from prying eyes. Today, temples are servants, and treasures are lines of code. The glitter of gold has been replaced by the glow of screens, but both are equally seductive, both awaken the same faith. Because money, at its core, was never metal or paper, it was always belief. What remains when everything solid becomes data? The illusion remains. The mental structure that associates numbers with power, figures with destiny, balance with identity remains. Even if banks, currencies, and blockchains disappear tomorrow, the human mind will continue to create equivalents. It will continue to measure the value of life in abstract units. Money is a language we learn to speak only too well, a language that no longer needs matter, only faith. The memory of gold is the memory of a time when wealth could be touched, when power had weight and exchange involved contact. It was imperfect, yes, but tangible. There was something human about counting coins, handing them over, feeling their cold against your skin. Today, touch is gone, and with it, part of our connection to the real world. Gold slept underground. Today's money floats in the air, invisible, ubiquitous, fragile. And yet its power remains absolute. We were told that digitization was progress, that turning money into code was efficiency. But no one explained what would happen when the code failed, or when someone decided to turn it off. In that instant, we understand that what we believed to be eternal was just a disguise. Money doesn't disappear. It transforms. It hides. It sheds its skin. Sometimes it dresses in gold, sometimes in bills, other times in numbers on a screen. But it always finds a way to dominate us again. The true power of money is not in its form, but in its ability to mutate. Like a ghost, it traverses eras, technologies, and systems, taking on new appearances without losing its essence. Each generation believes it has understood it, tamed it, made it fair. And yet the cycle repeats. Faith, expansion, crisis, reinvention. Value changes its face, but human devotion to it remains intact. Perhaps gold didn't disappear entirely. Perhaps it only hid behind numbers. Perhaps every digital currency, every token, every bank balance carries the metal's ancient DNA in its code. Humanity didn't forget gold. It absorbed it. It turned it into energy, into data, into light. And although it no longer shines in vaults, its echo continues to vibrate in financial centers, in satellites, in the servers that sustain the modern world. Gold became invisible, but its memory continues to govern value. Digital money is not a system error. It is its natural evolution. In his desire to dominate time and space, man eliminated the weight of wealth to make it faster, lighter, more ubiquitous. But in this race towards abstraction, he lost his anchor. Now he floats between bits, servers, and clouds, with no point of return. And every time we look at a figure on a screen, we think we see our reflection, when in reality, we are only seeing a shadow. The echo of lost value is not only economic, it is spiritual. Because money, by becoming intangible, also taught us to live in the intangible. Digital affections, virtual relationships, identities built on the network. Everything solid, as an old philosopher would say, melts into air. And in that air, we continue to breathe a system that never stops reinventing itself. Perhaps that is humanity's destiny, not to destroy money but to learn to listen to its echo. When the last server goes down, when the numbers are erased and the system shuts down, money will not die. It will return in another form, with another name, with another language. Because as long as there is desire, there will be value. As long as there is fear, there will be price. And as long as there is faith, there will be money. Invisible, eternal, adaptive. A ghost that doesn't need a body to possess the world. Ghost money is not gone. It has only disguised itself. And her laughter, soft and distant, still echoes with every transaction, with every number that flickers in the darkness. The echo of lost value isn't a farewell. It's a warning. Money will live on as long as there's someone willing to believe in it. And perhaps, in the end, that is the deepest of all human dependencies. Faith in the unseen.